Hello everyone, my name is Solvashas and welcome to this Threshold review. Today we are going to be taking a look at FlightBeam Portland International Airport for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. But before we get into this review, I want to address a few things. There are going to be some differences in this review compared to other reviews. First off, as I'm sure you now noticed, we are now doing reviews with video, so you'll be able to see my lovely face talking as the review continues, as well as pictures of the airport, videos of the airport as well. That's still going to be there. It's not just going to be me talking to the camera the entire time, but this is just a new aspect of reviews. We are also going to be getting rid of the grading system, as we have had issues with this in the past, and we think it's best that our users are the ones who determine what an airport deserves out of 10. So we are no longer going to be giving airports a score out of 10. But besides that, the format of reviews for scenery is going to stay by and large the same, and we'll see what happens with aircraft. We haven't completely thought about that just yet, but we're not at that phase right now. So please let me know what you guys think about this new format in the comment section below. I really appreciate the feedback, since this is very new to me as it is new to you. I would be very grateful for any and all feedback, positive or negative. So let's get into the review, shall we? As I said, today we are going to be reviewing Portland by FlightBeam. In this review, we're going to be looking over the textures, the modeling accuracy, the atmosphere, the performance, and the price. And then after that, we will wrap everything together, give some final thoughts, and then we'll end off the review. Now, as I said, the first thing we're going to be taking a look at are the textures of the airport. We're going to start by looking over here, because I think that this encapsulates the textures well overall. As you can see, there is a lot of depth to the textures. They don't feel like they're just one texture that is repeated over and over. There is some weathering done to the concrete over here. You can also see the same thing on the asphalt to the left, and you can see the jagged lines as well that separate the asphalt from the concrete. This is something that seems very characteristic of Portland, so they have done a great job with that. You can also see over here how the asphalt transitions very smoothly away from the taxiway into the grass patches in between the taxiways and the runway. This is done very well, and it makes the airport feel like it's meant to be here. It feels like the asphalt was actually placed on the ground and not just plastered over like a sticker. And the reason I say that is in some sceneries that I have reviewed, it does feel as if the asphalt is just stickered on there. It doesn't feel like it is actually part of the environment. In addition to that, the taxiway signs look really great, as they are all high resolution and they don't look too bright. They have a nice weathered color to them, and they look great with Microsoft Flight Simulator's lighting engine. Now moving over here to the air traffic control tower and the parking garage, we can see some other aspects of the textures. For instance, you can see how the side of the garage is really nicely detailed and looks great with the textures around it as well. It doesn't pop too much or anything, and this is in line with what the real parking garage looks like at Portland. The same can be said for the air traffic control tower as well. It looks like it's weathered and it doesn't pop out too much, but it's also very nicely modeled. But we'll get into modeling next. I just wanted to touch on that while we're here, just because the image is in front of your face. The cars on the top of the garage are also very nicely textured. They're of a nice high resolution, so when you're at the ramp in your aircraft, you feel as if the cars are actually there. However, the high resolution does not take away from frames, which I really like. It seems like that mentality of saving frames was carried on into the lower areas of the garage, because as you can see here, the cars have a lot less higher resolution textures. And this makes sense, because if they had high resolution textures, that would cut performance, and you can't really see these cars anyway, since they are in the shadows of the garage. But one thing I would have liked to see a little bit more of are higher resolution textures on top of the garage. If you're somebody who likes to do VFR flights around the airport, then this is something that will detract from the realism a bit, seeing as these textures are rather low resolution. And this follows through for the rest of the airport as well. The roofs of the terminal buildings are also a rather low resolution, and I understand doing this if you want to increase performance. However, as I said, if you are somebody who likes to do low VFR flights around the airport, This will easily be something that you notice, and it might detract from the realism. The other parts of the terminal and the other parts of the airport are done very well. They have nice high-resolution textures that look great when you're on the ground, coupled with fantastic work done on the runways and taxiways. Another thing that I like is that the static aircraft are also high resolution. These models look great, and they really add to the airport, especially since when you are importing default aircraft, they tend to remove some realism because of their default liveries. However, having the 3 Southwest planes over here and this Hawaiian 767 over there definitely assist in making this airport feel a lot more alive. And these aspects of the terminal that I mentioned follow through for the rest of the airport as well. The other buildings around the airport are also really well textured, and they look fantastic, giving the airport an overall complete feel to it, something I am very pleased to see. Now moving on to the modeling is done very well. I couldn't find any major places where FlightBeam messed up and provided bad models compared to reference images that I used from Google and other plane spotting sources. Portland looks really great, and the modeling around the airport, at the terminal, and the other buildings surrounding the airport are fantastic. The same can be said for the static aircraft as well, and I am very happy to see these high quality models and also see that it does not take away performance. However, one thing that I did notice is right under this large glass structure on the left over here, you can see that the pillars are holding up the glass roof. However, on the right, the roof kind of just hangs there, and this is not accurate with the airport in real life. In real life, there are pillars that help to hold up this right side. This is one thing that I noticed. However, it was one of the only major things that I noticed in this scenery. FlightBeam has also done a fantastic job in modeling with the default photogrammetry that comes with this area. If you didn't already know, it is very hard to implement your own photoreal textures into Microsoft Flight Simulator because of the Bing ortho imagery that is already present. So all of these ground textures, including the grass, are from Bing. FlightBeam has not yet implemented their own photorealistic textures. However, after speaking to them, it is clear that this is something that they want to do as soon as possible. Though this doesn't detract from the scenery. The way that their models interact with these photorealistic textures that Bing has provided are fantastic. I have seen quite a few sceneries now at this point, and nobody has done as great a job as FlightBeam in making sure that their airport connect to the textures that Microsoft provides. Another thing you'll notice in the modeling department that is slightly distracting are the cars in the lower levels of the parking garage. I mentioned how the textures were low resolution, but the poly count on these cars is also rather low. However, I'm not too frustrated about this because I was intentionally looking for these cars. When I moved back and positioned myself back at a gate, it was hardly noticeable and did not detract from my experience at all. You really have to be looking for these low poly cars in order to see them. As for the accuracy, I mentioned how the modeling in this airport is superb and follows Portland exactly. What I haven't talked about is how the textures line up with the accuracy of the airport. The textures are done fantastically. Those jagged lines that I was speaking about earlier on the taxiway are very characteristic of Portland in real life, and the runways are done fantastically as well. There's even the excellent attention to detail, recognizing that runway 28 left has a larger amount of skid marks on one side than the other. I was very impressed by this. One thing that I can comment on is that runway 10 looks like it is a bit darker than it is in real life, but this is a rather minor thing as the remaining characteristics of the runway follow suit with the images that I saw of it in real life. The other thing is something that I mentioned earlier, and this has to do with the modeling. The fact that the glass roof does not have any supports on the right side. However, this is likely an oversight and something that can be easily fixed. The next thing we're going to talk about is the atmosphere of the airport. In addition to having the default Microsoft Flight Simulator sounds, the airport also has a lot of life. There are tons of ground vehicles that are constantly moving around. When I was reviewing this scenery, there were about 2 or 3 planes on the taxiways at any given moment. The airport is full of atmosphere, but it is not enough to be considered overwhelming. It is also not enough to decrease the performance, which is the next thing we're going to talk about. So let's hop into the TBM take off from the runway and I'll give you a quick demo of the performance as we talk about it. The performance of this airport is superb. Even when I was reviewing the airport in ultra settings, which is above what my computer can smoothly handle, I was still getting a really solid frames per second, and it didn't inhibit my review process nearly as much as I would have expected given the size of this airport. As you can also see from us flying around, we are getting a really solid frames per second here, and this is on my normal settings, which are medium settings with a few tweaks to them in order to boost some visual things that I like to see. So overall, FlightBeam has done a fantastic job with their performance here, and I am really happy to see that they have found this success so early on in their Microsoft Flight Simulator development. Now finally, let's get on to the price. I think that this scenery is priced very reasonably for the amount of effort that was put into making Portland as accurate as possible given the resources available to developers at this time in Microsoft Flight Simulator scenery development. I would highly recommend that anybody who is interested in flying to Portland more often get this scenery, as it is a significant step up from the default scenery. With all that said, I'd like to thank you so much for watching today's video. Please be sure to give it a like if you like this review, and let me know down in the comments. Do you think that this scenery is worth the price? Do you like the scenery? Do you like my review? I'd love to see your comments. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please consider subscribing. It would mean a lot. And also let me know down in the comments if you would like this new format. And if you don't like this new format, let me know. I'd love to know any and all comments that you have. Thank you so much for watching today's video. See you in the next one.